So you probably heard that. Okay, so my name's Amy Birch, and I'm a transportation engineer and consultant that works on behalf of NDOT to help facilitate the traffic calming program for the city of Nashville. So I appreciate you all joining us this evening to talk about Harpeth Bend Drive. We have a chat box. If you want to enter questions in the chat box, that's fine. It's certainly a small enough group. You can unmute yourself and ask questions as we go along. Some of you may have attended our first meeting a few months back about this traffic calming project. And so we took the feedback that we heard during that meeting, and there was a desire to have a second meeting. So we're here to show you a more detailed plan. But I am going to go over some background information just in case we have people that weren't at the previous meeting, so they can be caught up. And then like I said at the beginning, we record these meetings. So if your neighbor missed it, they can find it on NDOT's website, which I have a link for at the end of this presentation and a QR code, but it's TrafficCalming.Nashville.gov. All right, well, let's get started. Making sure my slides are moving. Okay. So let's talk just briefly about what traffic calming is. We call this the Neighborhood Street Traffic Calming Program, and we focus on, before I get started, I wanted to, one note I meant to say is Councilmember Wiener contacted me this afternoon, and she unfortunately had something come up and wanted me to let you all know she was unable to join. Most likely unable to join. So, but she will be receiving the recording from the meeting as well. So I just wanted to let you all know that. Okay, so back to the traffic calming. We address this specifically for residential streets, and what it is how physically changing the street to encourage lower speeds over the length of the street. And we're really targeting speed reduction with this program. So one of the reasons for traffic calming, and Nashville wants to address traffic calming, is this correlation between speed and a severity of a crash. So this infographic is showing that at 25 miles per hour, a pedestrian, if struck by a vehicle going 25 miles per hour, has an 89% chance of survival. But at 35 miles per hour, the chance of survival for a pedestrian goes down to 68%. And at 45 miles per hour, that chance of survival goes down to 35%. So, and I think it's, common sense for us all to understand that higher speeds results in greater severity of a crash and greater likelihood of a fatality. And we want to mitigate that and reduce that here in Nashville. And another thing about speed and crashes is that at lower speeds, you have a longer time to react to something that you may see in the road down the road. So you have a longer time to react and slow down and avoid a crash altogether. So that's another reason to drive slower, especially on residential streets where people may be using the street for recreation as well. This neighborhood street program is application based, and we do have a high demand for and requests for traffic calming. As of our last application window, which closed in March of 25, we had over 600 neighborhood streets that have requested traffic calming. This particular street was selected in fall of 2024 as part of 25 streets that were selected. And this map on the right is showing lines in different colors to categorizing where streets are in the program, whether they've applied or been selected or in the meeting and design phase or what have you. So it's a tool that we put out there for the public to use to see if their street has applied for traffic calming, or if they would like to apply for traffic calming, they can look that up there. Outside of the traffic calming program, we always like to plug the Hub, which is an excellent tool that Metro Nashville has. It is a one-stop shop to reach Metro, NDOT, all departments really. And you can reach it by dialing 311, or you can go to the website hub.Nashville.gov, or there's an app you can download to your smartphone. But this is a great way to report issues like the street light is out, the traffic signal's flashing and not working, or your trash didn't get picked up, or request some brush being cut back because it's causing visibility issues. It gets the request to the right department, to the right person that can resolve it or answer your question about that. So just a really great resource to use. But let's go back and talk about traffic calming now. I talked to you about how we had such a great demand, in requests for traffic calming, but at any one time, we're usually, the program is usually selecting 25 streets for to receive a traffic calming project and go through the program. And that's done through a prioritization. So we go out and we collect data on all the streets that submit an application for traffic calming, and we measure all the streets and compare those streets based on this data and select those that score the highest. So we're the scoring process is 5 criteria points. So we measure the speed and volume. So the speed is worth 45% of the score out of 100. And then the volume is worth 25%. The trip destinations, that's, are there places nearby where pedestrians would, from the street, we would expect to be walking to and from, like schools, libraries, and community centers, that sort of thing. Then we also, and that's worth 5% of the score. And then we also look at non-driver accommodations. So is there a lack of sidewalks on the street? Are there bike lanes on the street, greenways nearby, or bus routes or stops along the street or within a close proximity of the street? And so that is worth 15% of the score. Then we also look at what we call the vulnerable user and injuries and fatalities. So we look back at crash data to see if there's been a pedestrian or bicycle crash over the last 10 years, and that's worth 10% of the score. We're specifically talking about Harpeth Bend Drive between Highway 100 and McPherson Drive. And I just want to show you some data points that we have from what we collected on Harpeth Bend. We collected the 85th percentile speed to be 43 miles per hour, where the posted speed limit is 25 miles per hour. So I want to explain the 85th percentile speed, because this is a metric we traffic engineers and transportation professionals reference a lot. It kind of gives us an idea of, what the prevailing speeds on the street are. But what it really means is that 85% of the traffic that we measured over the course of 24 hours is going 43 miles per hour or below. And then it means that 15% of the traffic was measured going above 43 miles per hour. So with the posted speed limit of 25 miles per hour and, this being a local street, that's been pretty high speed. So that is likely why this street was selected, went into that formula and that prioritization process, but that got it probably a lot of points because 43 miles per hour is pretty fast on a residential street. So then the volume being about 1,400 vehicles per day. That's the 24 hours. We measure somewhere midway along the street. And so that's both directions of travel. And then the street width varies, but it's mostly 10-foot lanes. And then the bike lane widths kind of vary depending on how wide the pavement is. And of course, there's not sidewalk on Harpeth Bend Drive. And this is a map just showing our project limits for you. It is a snapshot taken from our online tracker map. So it's a live map that we update regularly. I've highlighted Harpeth Bend here to show you the limits. And then you can kind of see some of the other streets nearby. I have some colored lines associated with those. And that's simply saying that where those streets are in the program. So further to the west, Harpeth Bend has the traffic circle. So you see that blue line where that continues on to the west. That's representing that there has been some traffic calming measures installed there with those traffic circles. And then, on the other side of the rail line, we have some streets that have applied for traffic calming but haven't been selected yet. And so they're denoted in pink. All right. Now I'm going to talk about the traffic calming measures that have been, recommended for Harpeth Bend. And we talked about this at our last meeting as well, that the program uses speed cushions for a number of reasons when, they're desired by the community, but that they are really effective. We've found that they're very effective and they're easy to implement. So it's one of the tools at our toolbox. We typically like to use the speed cushions where they have these gaps, as you can see in these images here, and that allows for emergency vehicles to straddle over them a little more easily without being slowed down as much. But passenger vehicles are still, their wheelbases, excuse me, their wheelbase is more narrow, and so they cannot like fully straddle them. They can put one wheel on and one wheel off sort of thing, but that actually tends to be a more uncomfortable ride than driving straight over the cushions as they're intended to. But as you can see in these pictures, they have striping on them that's visible at night with your headlights. We can configure them in a number of different ways, depending on how wide the street is, what the striping pattern on the street is. So, they'll have arrows on them or center lines. And then their height at their tallest height, they're 3 inches high, and so then they kind of slope up on either end as you travel over the cushions. And then we'll incorporate the flexible delineator posts in places like you see in the picture in the bottom right, where there's a bike lane next to the street, and so we don't want the drivers to leave the travel lane into the bike lane to try to avoid a speed cushion. So we'll use those flexible delineator posts to protect the bike lane there. We also use warning signage with the cushions, as you see in the picture in the top left. But one of the two main things about the cushions is when we install them in a series. So, and we like to space them anywhere from 400, 600 feet apart. And that encourages a consistent speed along the length of the street, as opposed to if we just put one and then didn't put one for a long ways. Drivers would probably tend to slow down just for that and then pick up speed or make up time in between and actually maybe drive faster between. So we do put them in a series like that. Then the other thing is we are very aware of driveways and street intersections and those sort of things. So we're not putting them right behind your driveway that you're going to have to back over them or turn across them as you're entering driveway. So we learn that in the field as we're laying these out. So, and then the other tool that we have incorporated into the plan are speed tables. And these are made of the same material, the rubber material, and they're drilled into the pavement the same as the speed cushions, but they don't have the gaps between to allow for the emergency vehicles to straddle. They're continuous across the whole width of the street, and typically are in these 14-foot lengths. And NDOT has done some before-after studies of speed cushions and found that they've been very successful in achieving the goals of slowing vehicles down and drivers. The graph on the left is a comparison of average speed before and after. So the before speed was 31 miles per hour, and then after cushions were installed, that speed went down to 21 miles per hour. And then the 85th percentile speed comparison on the right, the before average was 37 miles per hour, and then after the cushions were installed, went down to 25 miles per hour. So as you can see, that we found this to be successful in slowing drivers down. So now I'm going to show our recommended plan for Harpeth Bend Drive. And I'm going to zoom in the following slides. So this is just an overview of the plan set. And so what we're showing here is mostly sets of speed cushions along the length. But in that section behind Devon Park, we've shown two tables back there. And that was some feedback that were received at the previous meeting, hearing that there was some concern that motorcycles tend to use this street and drive fast on the street. So, and they would kind of like be expected to drive in between the cushions instead of being affected or slowed down by the cushion. So we incorporated a couple of tables instead of cushions there. But like I said, I'm going to zoom in more so we can see more closely where these are going to be would be located per this plan. And again, we're presenting this information to you as the neighborhood to get your feedback, but we think this is a good plan. So this first set, so we're just set where we are. We're working from the west, and we'll go east as we walk through these slides. So this first set is located essentially between 638 and 636 Harpeth Bend. And these measurements shown on the plan are just showing from the center of the cushion to the center of a driveway, essentially. So that gives us a point to tell the contractor where to place them. And we would have speed cushion signs associated with this cushion in the westbound direction or eastbound direction. And then our next set, continuing to go east, is shown essentially right in front of 626. And the scale is also a little fuzzy. We're showing the cushions are a larger scale than the actual street, but that's just so you can kind of see them. And then the next set, as you continue to go east, is near 612 Harpeth Bend. And then the next set is so it's basically at 601. 601 Harpeth Bend, and so there's A and a B there, so it's kind of in between those two driveways. And these are spaced at roughly 500 feet apart on average. Then our next set is near 570 Harpeth Bend. As you kind of turn that, not corner, it's not a corner, but before that sort of slight curve. And then the next set is, these are a little harder to cite because there's not driveways and addresses back here, but another 400 or so feet, we have another set of cushions. And then the first table working to the east is really at the back of that White Heath Court. And then the next one is before you get to the back of Burley Court. And so we've noted these near, cited these based on the utility pole locations, but and then we have a set of cushions right before you get to the bend to slow people as they enter and exit that 90-degree turn. And then we have another set of cushions between Highway 100 and the 90-degree turn. So I believe it is 10 vertical devices along the length of the street. And it's just under a mile long length. So I think that works out to be about 500 foot spacing. So this image is showing the different configurations that we have for the cushions and tables, and just to make you aware of the flexible delineator posts, see how they lie in the roadway. So they're going to be virtually centered in the lane, so you can drive straight over them as you drive the street. They are 14 feet in length, so that gives them a flatter and longer top, so they're a little bit smoother than some of the shorter ones that we might put in more urban areas. This is a little bit more suburban style design, if you will. And yeah, the table will continue the centerline striping on it. So I think I'll pause there and see if we have any questions. I can zip back through the plan if we need to and put that on the screen. But I want to be sure I give you an opportunity to ask questions or make comments.
Hi, Amy. This is Jeff Shearer on 628 Harpeth Bend. Can you hear me okay?
I can.
Can you describe, and maybe you did in the prior meeting that I missed, so I apologize if I'm asking something you've already explained, but will the speed circles come out when these go in?
No, they will not.
So,
They're sort of the other end of the street. You're talking.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a conclusion then that the speed circles have not been effective in slowing down traffic?
I think we haven't necessarily, I wouldn't say we've necessarily studied that, but they're not as effective the further you get away from them. So this section down the eastern section of Harpeth Bend doesn't receive any continued benefit from that intersection treatment at McPherson. There's just such a long distance between the traffic circles at Harpeth Parkway West and at McPherson Drive. So as the further you get east of McPherson Drive, there's less effect of those intersection treatments with the traffic circles. And then you end up on more of a straight street,
right,
with no other.
Yeah. Has there been a consideration for replacing the traffic circles with what you're showing us here, either the cushions or tables?
No, we haven't heard
a piece of crap.
that was desired.
I needed it.
Any other questions about the plan?
One more question on the delineators. Is that a single delineator or is it a string of them like we have now around these speed circles?
No, they would just be singles or doubles where it's wider because there are some sections. So in that like top left box, there's some sections of the roadway where the bike lane is pretty wide. So, we know that a vehicle could, shoot through there if it was just one there. So that has two side by side, but otherwise we're just incorporating the one on either side of the cushion or table.
Okay, and I'm sorry if I'm hogging your time, but
No.
has there been a consideration for removing the delineators around the speed circles and replacing them with some kind of a speed bump circular thing so they're not as ugly, for lack of a better term, than what we currently have on our street?
No, we have not considered that. If that's something that you're, experiencing some issues with, like they're, too tight or something, and it's limiting your driving maneuvers or something like that, you can reach out to the hub, or I can share that information, and we can look at that if they're, causing an issue that way.
Yeah. Over time, the closest delineator to the speed circle typically is run over so many times that it breaks. And then you've got this partial delineator sticking up from the ground, which people continue to run over, and it's possibly hurting their tires. Not that they should be watching out for that. But it seems to me that something that's more, for lack of a better term, better looking than these delineators, but accomplishes the same thing, would be a vast improvement, especially if I lived on one of these corners where suddenly I've got all these delineators in front of my yard, which to me look like a bunch of Q-tips sticking up in our neighborhood. That would be I would think that would be a something that I'd like to see considered.
So, can you repeat that? What are you having questions about these delineator, the use of these with the cushions, or you're just saying in general?
Oh, I'm fine with the cushions. Yeah, I'm fine with this.
Okay.
The ones
Okay.
that you're showing us with the tables and the cushions, I'm fine with those. It's where you have a string of, let's see, probably 12 of these things when you in line around these traffic circles.
Okay.
And I understand, when the speed circles first went up, they didn't have those. So obviously people were swerving around them, cutting into the yard of the person who lives on the corner. So I see the need for it. And I also see the need to protect a bicyclist who's using that lane. But again, it seems like you could do the same thing without having something as visually unattractive as these delineators.
Understood. I don't know that I have an answer because they are a tool that we're using because they're visible. But I understand your point. Any other questions about the plan? I have a few more slides to talk about, the program flow and the next steps that we can go into, but I want to make sure that we've addressed or answered any questions that anyone had about the plan we've shown. All right, hearing none, we can.
So chat. This is pitiful. Bring
All right, let's move on to our program flow so I can kind of just walk you through where we are in the process and what's next. But as we talked about, it's an application-based program, so residents get together and apply, filling out the application, and then we do our prioritization and selection process, as I discussed earlier, and then 2 times per year there's a selection, and it's usually 25 streets per selection, but it can vary based on available budget. It has been more at times. And then from there, we work with the neighborhood, set up a meeting, put together a concept, show that concept at the meeting. A lot of these similar slides are shared. And then from there, we move on to the detailed design plan. And that's what we've finished. We've wrapped up. I've shown you that here at this second meeting because we had some questions that were raised at the last meeting, and also some specific requests about the use of speed tables. So we wanted to see if we could incorporate that. And we have been able to do that some. And then from here, we would move into assuming that everyone's happy and wanting to move forward for the most part. Then we would move into our online ballot phase of the project, which is how NDOT confirms that this is something that the neighborhood and the residents that will be most affected by the project are in support of the project. And I have another slide to speak specifically about the process of that online ballot. But once the voting closes, we move it into the construction queue. Right now, our construction queue is anywhere from 6 to 10 months, and that's because NDOT orders the materials and acquires that, gets that project moving after they're assured that the project is going to move forward. So I'm going to talk specifically about the balloting process. What happens is we will mail postcards to the eligible properties that can vote on this project, and there's a QR code, so you can use your smart device and use that QR code to go to the online ballot. Each postcard has a unique ID, and that's how we just make sure we don't have duplicate votes that swing it one way or the other, so forth. And then we have a voting period that's open for 6 weeks, and that'll be printed on the postcard. So when you get your postcard, when it closes, respondents can vote yes or no for the project. And then if 66% of the respondents vote yes, then the project moves forward. And then on this postcard, there's also a number to reach NDOT for help if someone receives this postcard and they're unable to vote online for any reason or have other questions. They can reach someone there. And at the top of the Traffic Calming online ballot, this is just a snapshot in the bottom left corner there, but there's also a link to the plan that will be posted online, or our plans page, and your plan would be there as well. So you'll have opportunity, especially if you're never you haven't been familiar with the project before. Now you have an opportunity to review what you're voting for as a property owner. So the ballot zone for Harpeth Bend Drive is highlighted here in yellow. And so our NDOT's policy for this process is that it's the eligible voters are residential properties, churches, and schools, and they each get 1 vote. So if a residential property or a property owner owns multiple properties on the street, they still just get 1 vote. And then it's all properties that abut the affected right-of-way are eligible to vote. Homeowners with, already mentioned that, just get multiple property owners. An owner with multiple properties gets 1 vote, yes. And then we siphon out vacant properties. I don't think we have any vacant properties really on this, maybe 1 in that little tiny corner. Vacant properties aren't eligible, businesses aren't eligible. And then we always like to tell you all who are participating in the meetings to, let your neighbors know when you get your postcard, to remind them to look for it, to vote and do that. But if anybody you talk to hasn't received their postcard, or you don't receive your postcard, what do you think you should have? Please reach out to NDOT. I've got some contact information on the next slide, and let us know, because we can assist with that. We do want people to be able to vote. And then specific to Harpeth Bend Drive, it's 58 eligible properties. One question that came up in our previous meeting, so I do want to address it. The question was, can't more people on those cul-de-sacs in the Devon Park neighborhood vote? And we did discuss that, but determined that we need to stick to the policy that we have, so we are not showing more properties in the Devon Park being able to vote. It's just those that back up to Harpeth Bend Drive. We have to have a policy that kind of works for all streets, and we have all sorts of different scenarios on lots of streets in Nashville. So we think it's best to stick with the policy there. So I do want to share my information. Again, I'm Amy Birch, and that's my email address. Amy Birch at birchtransportation.com. We also showing NDOT's traffic calming email address, NDOT.TrafficCalming.Nashville.gov. And then our last slide is showing the traffic calming website, TrafficCalming.Nashville.gov. Lots of information there. This is where we house all of the meeting recordings from all of our traffic calming meetings, our manuals and toolbox kit on the types of traffic calming measures we do. Our design plans are posted there. The results of the ballots are posted there, not individual, votes, who voted for what, but just the percentages and the results. So, it'll say that it passed at 70% or whatever it is. And then our tracker map is also on this website. So just a lot of great information about the program. So I think I'll pause again here and see if and confirm that our next steps would be to send our ballot postcards out and get this thing voted on. And then from there we would move it into construction if the vote is successful. So do we have any consensus here? Is that what we're looking to do?
I've got a question on the voting. Go ahead.
Just write a message. Oh, hell.
Okay, you have a question on the voting?
I'm sorry. I thought somebody else was wanting to speak. Yes, I've got a question on the voting. Is this a new process? Because when the speed reduction project was put in place several years ago on this street, there was no ballot to approve that by the residents. And when we reached out to our council member, he said it was an experimental thing. So it was to allow NDOT to gather information for whether or not it would be a viable solution. So is this a new process, or was there supposed to be a voting process for what we currently have in place?
No, it's not. It's new since that was installed. Those were installed back in, I think, 2018, 17, 18, I think, or maybe 19. I can't remember. But since then, this program has evolved and has been doing a voting process. Actually, before the online ballot voting with the postcards, it was a wet signature petition that residents had to go door to door and get signatures, and that just proved out to be very challenging and hard on residents to seek that. So we moved into this balloting through the mail and reaching people. So this program with the balloting, I think the balloting started in like 2022 maybe, or 2023. So my years are starting to run together. I've been working on this program for a while, but we did do petitions in 2022 and so forth. So to answer your question, it's new since those traffic
Okay.
circles have been
Yeah,
installed.
it sounds like a much better process than the petition going door to door. Going back though to this experimental project we have, the train's going by right now, so I apologize. Were there any results from the current speed reduction program on Harpeth Bend that were never shared, or maybe they were shared and I missed it?
I don't know about that. I started working on this program in 2021, but I can find out or ask some questions.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Do you want to put your, I don't know if you want to put your contact information in the chat, or you can send me an email and I can follow up with you. Did
Yeah,
you get my
I
email?
noted your, it's, yeah, I'll send you an email and you can reply to that.
There we go. Sounds good. Okay, so I think I just want to, it sounds like we're in favor of moving forward with this project, or with the vote for the project. So what will happen is we will post the plans on NDOT's website, and then send postcards out. So those might end up in your mailbox by the end of next week or the first of the next. Hearing no other desires not to keep it moving and on with the process, the process flow. Can I answer any other questions or any other comments?
I don't know. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, has any thought been given to another through street other than Harpeth Bend? Our street takes on a lot of the traffic when people do not want to be on Old Hickory Boulevard. And Bellevue Road's very dangerous. And then after Harpeth Bend, the next cut through street is Temple Road, which is a long ways down Highway 100. So a lot of people just automatically use Harpeth Bend for their cut through street. Has any thought been given to another cut through street at some point?
Not that I'm aware of. I don't think there's anything on the horizon, but it's not something I've looked into specifically. Our goal with this program is to slow drivers that are using your residential street, both those that live on your street and those that are driving through the street. So, nope. Okay, then. Oh, yeah.
One more question.
Sure.
It appeared to me that there are some houses on the very end of the street by the right-hand turn that goes onto Highway 100 that don't have access to Harpeth Bend Drive, yet they're going to also have a vote. There is no driveway access for any of those houses. There's a fence that goes along the road.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a bit confused why they would have a vote on this process.
Mm-hmm.
Jeff, I'll be more than happy to answer that question since I live in Devon Park. As you know from driving that street, it is flat and straight through that area. And we see speeds up to 70 miles an hour with people shortcutting. We see this every day. And so in my eyes, quite frankly, it affects the people that are touching their property touches the road, but it also affects people 1 and 2 houses over. And we've actually had a car hit one of the houses in Devon Park. So it's that, to me, is why that area needs, more speed cushions, or I'm sorry, I've got the term wrong, but the table, I believe, was the case. And first of all, Amy, I'd like to say thank you, but Jeff, I do understand what you're saying. There's no driveways, but that also is the reason why it needs to be done, is because it encourages speeding. And we do see 70-mile-an-hour speeding. And Amy, thank you.
That's a
Thank
good
you.
answer. Thanks, Bernard.
Well, great. I think we've handled everything then. I appreciate you all attending and giving me feedback on the plan and listening. Again, we're going to go ahead and proceed with the next steps, which is to send the ballot postcards out to the property owners that were highlighted in that image. And please, let your neighbors know to look out for them and to vote. Do it as soon as you get your postcards so you don't forget and it doesn't get lost. But if anyone doesn't receive theirs, or you're talking to your neighbors and they missed it, please help them get in touch with us. All right. Well, you all
Thank you
have
very
a good
much.
evening. Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.